Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video on this optic mount that you see here on my 300 Blackout SBR. This one specifically is from Midwest Industries. Just FYI, I have a Vortex Diamondback HP scope in there. It's a 4-16. I really like this scope and this setup. It's worked really well for me. You've seen this in my 300 Blackout accuracy and ballistic videos I've been doing recently. This is the exact setup, scope, and base that I used when I was doing my Recce 5 silencer review, and I shot the one-hole group on my 5.56 SBR. So I've really liked this thing a lot. I've been using it for a few months now. Figured now I'd do the review. As you can see, this is the quick disconnect version. It's got those two little QD throw levers right there. Now, Midwest Industries is a company I've been using for years. As you can see here, on the handguard on this is actually one of their Gen 3 M-Lock rails. I've already done a review on this, so feel free to check that out as well. But I'm a really big fan of what Midwest Industries is doing. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to watch the SHOT Show video that I did with Ryan over there. Apparently, just because him and I both have a name, Ryan, that apparently makes us brothers, because we all know that family members share a first name, apparently. Anyway, I talked to him about this scope, and he was nice enough to provide me with this base, so just full disclosure there. Now, when it comes to doing a review on an optic mount, you know, really it either works or it doesn't, and this thing absolutely does work. But I know one of the things that people always ask about, especially with QD mounts, is how well it returns to zero. So the test I'm going to be doing today with this is seeing how well it returns to zero. So we're going to be using this 300 Blackout upper. We're going to be setting up a target at 100 yards. I'm going to do probably 5 to 10 rounds at 100 yards, take the optic mount off, put it back on, shoot at the exact same point of aim for 5 to 10 rounds, and see if that group gets any bigger or changes the center of the point of impact. What I'm going to do too is I'm going to have a downrange camera set up the whole time. I'm going to keep the uprange camera running the whole time, just so that there's no funny business as far as camera tricks or anything like that. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to the test. Okay, so the ammo I'm going to be using for this test is the 125 grain SSTs loaded up by Fiocchi. If you've watched the videos I've done testing different factory loads for 300 Blackout, this is by far the most consistent I've tested so far. So this should let us check with the highest degree of precision what kind of variances there are before taking the scope off and after putting the scope back on. Again, I have a downrange camera set up, the target 100-yard target. And I'm going to leave this camera running the whole time, just again so you know there's no hanky-panky with, you know, I guess faking the groups. Not that I would ever do that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and see how this does. All right, not my best shooting, but that is 10 rounds if I counted correctly in my head. So I'm going to take the scope off and put it back on. Now, I will say, just to make excuses for myself, while I was doing the ladder test, I zeroed the scope to that other ammo that I was doing it for, so I forgot to re-zero it to this. So my group is a little bit off to the right, but again, as long as I keep that same point of aim, we should be able to, again, make sure it returns back to zero. Now, when you're putting the scope back on, it's really important to remember exactly what rail section you had it mounted to, Otherwise, it's going to be a lot more iffy that it's going to return back. So as long as I get it back to the same spot. And the other key is you want to press the scope forward as you're tightening. And a lesson that I learned is you want to tighten the rear lever before tightening the front lever. Otherwise, that front lever is going to go in front of the rear one and you can't tighten the rear one. So that makes it easier. And if you had a hard time seeing how the QD works, I'll do a close-up of that after I'm done with this test. Again, right now I just want to see what the return to zero potential is. So now that we've got it back on, let's shoot the last bit of this magazine. Again, using the exact same point of aim. All right, so I may have miscounted on one of those curves because I think I might have shot one too many for that 10. Anyway, with the exception of one of those shots, it looks like it stayed more or less in the same group. So let me go ahead and grab that target, bring it back, and we'll talk about it. All right, so as a testament to how much I like this Fiocchi ammo, you can see with the exception of this one, which this was the first round after I put the scope back on, it could just be that it was sitting in a hot chamber, maybe, as to maybe why the powder burned faster. I don't know. Either way, with the exception of that one fire, all 20 rounds, so I guess 19 rounds, were within, I think I measured on my calipers, it was 1.4 and some change inches. So under an inch and a half for 19 rounds at 100 yards. I'm happy with that. And again, consider that that's with taking the scope off and putting it back on again. I'll even show you a close-up picture with the calipers just to show, again, that's 1.5 inches. So that is to say, as far as I'm concerned, this thing does well enough returning back to zero that I would feel comfortable if I had to taking it off, putting it back on, as long as I had it properly zeroed, because again, I forgot to re-zero it to the SSTs, so my point of impact was a little bit high and to the right. My point of aim was right at this number 9 here, so it was a little high and to the right. But again, as long as I kept that consistent point of aim, it kept it all in an 1.5 inch circle right there, which I am very happy with. So I think it's safe to say this thing, as long as you do your part, has a very high probability of returning back to zero. Now that said, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the features that I specifically like about this mount and what I think makes it one of the best mounts on the market. All right, so now that we've demonstrated how well this thing will return to zero after taking it off and putting it back on again, I want to show you a little bit more close up of exactly what it is we're dealing with when we're talking about these QDs here. Now there's a bunch of different designs on the market as far as how the little QD levers loosen and tighten. The way these ones work from Midwest Industries is there's a little button back here, or excuse me, up here in the front. And if you can see, it disengages the little claw back there. Hopefully, I apologize for the sniffling. It's lovely allergy season here in the Pacific Northwest, and where I'm at in Oregon, it's one of the worst places in the nation. Anyway, so if you can see that little tooth open, once you push that up, you can actually swing the lever out, which again, that's how you loosen it down, and you can tighten it back up and it'll pop into place, as you can see right there. And I can tell you, once you have this thing tight, It is extremely secure. You don't have to worry about these things coming off when you don't want them to. And then one of the things that I really like, again, about the quick disconnect system that Midwest Industries uses over some of the other options on the market, like I know one of the mounts I have from LaRue doesn't do this, and I wish it did, is the way it actually maintains the tension. They use these little bolts over here, and because of the flat edges, it recesses into that little pocket right there, which means that once you set the tension on that lever, it's not going to loosen, it's not going to tighten on you. It's going to stay exactly the same, which is, again, absolutely ideal for what you want. Because there's a lot of other ones on the market where if you loosen them and tighten them over and over, that over time, or even if you just leave it tight, over time, those screws will back out, it'll relieve the tension on it, and then you are dealing with a loose scope, and then your point of impact is going to be shifting all over the place, and that's not what you want. So because of this, even though I've been using this for months, I've never once had to readjust the tension on these things. It has stayed tight, and it is mechanically nearly impossible for this thing to loosen on itself. Pretty much you have to adjust it. Now, so let me take this off, and I'll show you how you would adjust that yourself. So now that we have this thing off the rifle, what you can do is once you have it loosened up, you can push down on the lever end, and as you'll see, it pushes down the screw part. And so hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing here. If it'll focus properly, all you have to do is when you push in, you can just rotate this screw around until it's as loose or as tight as you need it, and then you just relieve the pressure on it, and it'll recess right back into its home. Again, I don't know how well that's focusing, but hopefully you can see this well enough. So what I typically do is if it's too loose, I'll go 1 or 2 clicks tighter, see if that's going to work. If it's too tight, I'll do 1 or 2 clicks the other way and see if that works. But using this method, because there's so many different places for it to secure, you're never going to have to worry about not finding that right balance of it being too tight and too loose. So you're going to really find that sweet spot, which makes it really easy. It has the 4 little screw attachments on each of the rings, and that has held it really secure for me so far. Again, I haven't dealt with anything loosening over time, and I've been using this for months and months with this exact setup, again, with no issues whatsoever. So a really big fan of what's coming out from Midwest Industries. They're doing a lot of great stuff. Again, if you haven't seen my SHOT Show video that I did with Midwest Industries, I'd highly encourage you to watch that video. They are really taking care of the entire market with AKs, ARs, bolt guns. They're even building their own ARs, their own 308 ARs. They're really doing everything they possibly can, and they're doing really, really good stuff. So big thanks to them for supplying me with this mount to do a review for you guys. It's definitely going to be staying as my go-to for this scope setup. It's a really great option. If this isn't exactly how you want it set up, they do have a bunch of other options for quick disconnect mounts. They have it where it's totally in line. They have it a much lower mount. This is designed specifically for like AR-15s because it's got that little bit higher rest so that your cheek weld is going to keep it perfect for you. But they have a bunch of other options. I'll have links to their website so you can see the entire product line. And if you don't like black, they have FDE ones as well for you to pick. And I want to say they're about the same price, if not exactly the same price. So you're not losing out there, which is excellent. So again, big fan of everything that I've had so far from Midwest Industries. This definitely included in that. You guys will definitely keep seeing this on the channel, as well as some other Midwest Industries stuff that I have for my AK that you guys will be seeing here soon. So if you want to see more of that, definitely subscribe to my channel, and you will get an alert whenever those videos go up. But as always, I hope you're able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.